Now, as a point of reference, I previously demoed the Rocky Mountain Slayer, and I loved it. The way it felt, the way it rode, how efficient it was on the climbs, and how confident it made me feel on the descents. I just thought it was a bit too much bike for my everyday trail riding. The Slayer is an aggressive enduro bike that's trail-worthy, whereas I'm looking for more of an aggressive trail bike that's enduro-worthy. That's where the Rocky Mountain Altitude fits in perfectly. Now I'm going to cut right to it. I took the Altitude out on a free demo on my local trails, and I loved it so much that when my friend Kyle said,
"Hey, let's do the whole enchilada in Moab tomorrow,"
it was totally worth it for me to pay the $100 to rent the Altitude and ride it again. So I had a fair bit of time on the Altitude on a wide variety of terrain. With 150mm of travel in the rear paired with a 160mm fork, optimized for really wide aggressive tires and modern geometry, I expected this to be like a mini Slayer, and it did feel that way when pointed downhill. But on everything else, it felt more like an efficient mid-travel 27.5 trail bike, but with a little extra in reserve for when things get gnarly. It has what I think a do-everything trail bike should have. It felt lively and playful, with the perfect amount of trail feedback underneath your feet. I was comfortable and confident, and I felt like I could really control it as opposed to just hanging on and letting the bike do all the work. And one of the cool things that sets Rocky Mountain bikes apart is that they have what's called the Ride 9 system, where with some flip chips in the rear linkage, you have the option of 9 different geometry settings: steep, slack, neutral, linear, progressive, and a few in between, giving you about 1 degree of adjustment in your head tube and seat tube angles, and a 15mm change in bottom bracket drop. Now some people say it's 9 different bikes, but I think it's more like only 2 or 3, slack and steep, with fine tuning in between. The slackest gives you a stable low bottom bracket, a 65-degree head tube angle, perfect for those big downhill enduro days, and a relatively steep 74-degree seat tube angle for an efficient climbing position. Now the steepest position gives a 66.1-degree head tube angle, which for me feels like the sweet spot for trail riding without feeling like you're being steered by a slacked out chopper. And it gives you a 75-degree seat tube angle for an even better over-the-pedals climbing position. Now in this steep setting, you also get a longer reach of 441mm for this medium, which is on the longer side, perfect for feeling balanced and in the bike, as well as having some of the shortest chainstays I've ever seen at 423mm, which allow the rear end to feel really controllable and, to use an industry cliche, flickable. This all adds up to a bike that's incredibly balanced, easy to ride, controllable, confident, and ultimately downright fun. For my trails, here in the Grand Valley of Colorado, and with a quick skip to Moab, Utah, our trail riding is pretty aggressive. All we do is grow rocks, chunky and gnarly going down, and technical going up. Now when it comes to climbing, a lot of people will judge how a bike climbs based on climbing up fire roads or buff climbs with switchbacks, where with a long travel bike with a horse link rear end, you might really notice small inefficiencies no matter how efficiently it pedals, and you'd use the shock lockout. Now I found that with Rocky Mountain, they have tweaked, refined, and perfected the horse link suspension design to stay efficient, reducing pedal bob, but it still stays active enough to keep traction for technical climbing. And I just left the shock wide open all the time, especially for our undulating, rocky, and technical climbing that we do out here. I find that the Altitude's climbing prowess is impeccable. Not only does the steep seat tube put you right over the pedals, but the slack head tube angle actually helps when it comes to climbing technical trails. It seems easier to get my front wheel up and over things when it's a little bit more out in front instead of right underneath me. Now when this thing points down, the horse link design is buttery and active, even while on the brakes. It felt like the most active rear suspension that I've ridden, especially when you're on the brakes through technical stuff and corners. It doesn't feel like it's stuttering like a lot of other suspension designs do out there. It soaked up all the little chatter while remaining efficient, supportive in the mid-stroke, and it didn't have any harsh bottom-out feeling. Now this $5,400 carbon build is awesome, as it should be, with full Shimano XT, a Fox 36 Performance Elite fork, a Fox Float Evol DPS Performance Elite shock, Wide Trail Maxxis Minions, and a 150mm Fox transfer dropper post that can actually insert all the way into the frame to fit me perfectly with my short legs. There's nothing to complain about. and there really shouldn't ever be anything to complain about at that price. But where I think Rocky Mountain has done an amazing job with the Altitude is having a $3,000 aluminum frame option with entry-level kit, up to a $4,300 build with the GX Eagle and top-end Performance Elite Fox suspension. I, personally, will not really consider a bike unless there's an aluminum option. Carbon is cool and all, but I would rather have a frame that's a half a pound heavier with better components for the same and or lower price. Especially for me as a beginner, I think I'd end up cracking, scratching, or breaking a carbon frame pretty quickly with how much I crash, and that would be no bueno. And us weekend warriors and beginners just getting into mountain biking might not have $5,000 to $8,000 to spend on a bike. I love that Rocky has worked to police the carbon lovers and include budget-friendly options to welcome people into the sport with a relatively low cost of entry. Now, I know that this may seem like I'm just giving the Altitude another boring rave review, and you want to hear the bad stuff too, and I do have but one small complaint. The Ride 9 geometry adjustment flip chips are just a little bit difficult to manage, as opposed to the more straightforward flip chips from other brands. But I feel like that's something that I can get used to with practice. Now for me, the majority of my trails, my riding style, and my riding goals, I feel like the Rocky Mountain Altitude is the perfect bike not only to start off with, but to grow into as well. It acts like an amazing trail bike, but then it really steps up when you need it for those bigger hits and the weekend warrior enduro race days. After riding all of these bikes, the Rocky Mountain Altitude is in the top 3 for me. Now I suggest throwing a leg over the Altitude and giving it a try for yourself. Now thanks for watching. I'm Shane, the Crashing Dad, and if you like what you see, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. If you already have, thank you so much. It's been a blast having you all here with me as I try out a bunch of bikes and make my way towards pulling the trigger on one. Cheers.
Wow. Oh man,
I can't believe how gorgeous this is, man.
this is insane.
It's so nice. This is far better than I could have even imagined.